Hey,
Are you okay? Is everything all right?
um, yeah, I just don't know what to do. I got caught up, and I'm just screwed.
Okay, so you gonna tell me what's going on, or
Okay, so remember that guy I was dealing with?
yeah?
Well, he felt that now was a good time to tell me that he got HIV, and I don't know what to do. I mean, what if he gave it to me?
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Do you feel that you got infected?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, seen or felt any symptoms. I mean, so I think I'm fine. But I mean, I don't know. I'll be okay.
You know you gotta get tested, right?
I mean, but how much would that cost? Like, see, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been to a doctor in forever. Like, I don't even know where to.
Wait. Girl, turn to channel 275. I think they're talking about HIV right now.
Oh,
Audio Jungle.
In 2020, approximately 1.2 million people in the United States are living with human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. HIV is a virus that attacks the helpful cells in your body that are supposed to fight off infections. It can be spread through forms of unprotected sexual contact with someone who has already been infected. About 14% of them, or 1 out of 7, people don't know that they have HIV and need testing. But what kind of testing is available? Is it expensive? Today, we are live on channel 275 Micro BIO with Dr. Alayne Hawthorne, an infectious disease physician at the University of Pennsylvania, here to discuss this public crisis issue. Good to see you, Doctor.
hello. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, you have spent a good chunk of your career investigating and researching HIV, its effect on the human body, the most effective method of testing, and its effect and overall impact on society.
Yes, that is correct. As you mentioned, this virus attacks the body's immune system, most specifically the white blood cells called CD4 plus. And throughout my career, we have experimented on a variety of tests to find the most cost effective and accurate method of testing.
Now, Doctor, the most common way of transmitting HIV is by having unprotected sex. Are there other ways of spreading this disease?
Well, that is a great question. So, unprotected sex is not the only way of spreading the virus. It can also be spread through sharing drug injectable equipment such as needles. So, often people could spread the virus and not even know it.
And what kind of symptoms do those who test positive for HIV present?
Well, it could take 3 to 12 weeks for symptoms to show up on routine tests for infection. 2 to 4 weeks after exposure, symptoms can present themselves as flu like. We call this an acute infection. Other symptoms include swollen lymph nodes, mouth ulcers, fever chills, rash, night sweats, muscle aches, sore throat, fatigue. The best way is to just get tested. These symptoms do not mean you have HIV, or you can have the infection and not have any symptoms.
Now, we know that in cases like the current climate we are in now with COVID 19, those with marginalized identities, especially those with intersectional marginalized identities, are greatly impacted by diseases. This could be because of lack of resources, accessibility to getting tested, and lack of health insurance. there seems to be a disparity gap in medicine for minorities. Now, knowing that statistic that 14% of people who have contracted HIV don't even know that they have the virus, do you believe that there are some groups that are disproportionately affected than others?
As a matter of fact, I do. Just in 2018, adult and adolescent Black African Americans accounted for 42% of all new HIV diagnoses. Additionally, Hispanics, Latinos are also strongly affected. They account for 27% of all new HIV diagnoses. So we look at HIV diagnoses by race and ethnicity, we see that African Americans are most affected by HIV. That's not even including adding identities that are Black slash Latinx and involved in same sex intercourse, or may also be low income on top of that.
Now, in the Latino community, we have something called machismo. Essentially, this is where men are taught to be tough by their elders, show no signs of weakness. I believe this is just masculinity. Um, do you believe that this could play a part in the increasing numbers of HIV?
Well, now that sounds like a conversation for a whole nother segment. But in shorter terms, low income, minority, and otherwise marginalized men may disproportionately pay the cost of masculine norms in terms of the impact on their health through masculine behaviors that put them at risk for HIV.
Well, it seems like a good way for society to help is to get tested. So, what kind of tests are available? Who for those who have been exposed to HIV or may have been exposed?
Now we're getting down to my favorite part. So my lab was actually one of the first labs and co-founders of the Nucleic Acid Test, or NAT for short, the test for HIV. This test, commonly known as the viral load test, because it can either tell if a person has HIV or tell how much of the virus is present in said patient's blood, or even oral fluid or urine.
And what exactly does it do? What's the science behind it?
Well, the test requires that we take the specimen of one of the vital fluids that I mentioned before, and we essentially look for virus specific DNA. So, for example, blood. So, we take a blood sample, such as when you draw blood from a person's vein, and separate the plasma from the blood, and then we get the serum from that. After that, we break the cells up from the serum, which is what we call lysis. After lysing the cells, we obtain the contents from the cells, wash and purify them to isolate the viral nucleic acids in the cells. Once they're isolated, we want to amplify them, that is, make a lot of copies in order to detect the presence of the virus. This part of the process is called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR. We do this by using small DNA sequences called primers that will attach to the nucleic acids of the DNA of interest. We also add in other reagents and adjust the temperatures so that the DNA can separate, because DNA is double stranded, attach to the primers and then replicate to amplify the region. Once amplified, we'll be able to detect the viral nucleic acids using some sort of fluorescent molecule.
So, doctor, tell me, what's the difference between this test and, say, an ELISA?
Well, with the NAT, you can come in a lot earlier after you believe you've been exposed. The NAT test helps tell if a person has HIV within 10 to 33 days of exposure. Now, NAT is usually used after a person has been screened using a rapid test. Essentially, with the rapid test, you take this test, it uses an HIV antibody test used to screen for HIV infection. And if that test is positive or indeterminate, the NAT test is the most accurate and effective next step.
So, this rapid test, is that the one that you can do at home? And how much is that?
Correct. Well, so self-testing is available. You take the test home and you find out your results there. You can find a test like this at your local Walgreens or CVS. As for the cost, these can range anywhere from $40 to $150.
Well, that's about all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Hawthorne, for taking the time to discuss this very important matter with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope that everyone takes the time to take precautions, be safe, and get tested.
You heard it here, folks. If you or a loved one believes to have been exposed to HIV, pick up the phone, call a health provider, medical center or hospital, substance abuse program, or even community center for an HIV test. I'm Alexis Hiron Santos on channel 275 Micro BIO. Tune in next time.
Girl, I mean, I'm scared. Like, what do I do?
Don't worry. Let's go get you tested, okay? I'll be right there with you.
Okay, thank you.